first, there was enchantment. The wedding seemed like the climax of a modern fairy tale. Eliza Moretti, a 33-year-old architect, determined and passionate about aesthetics, walked radiantly down the aisle, draped in fine lace and wearing a smile that mixed love and hope. By her side, Ricardo de Santis, a man who looked like he had stepped out of a magazine, impeccably dressed, a renowned investor, an art collector, heir and multiplier of a gigantic fortune. The world applauded. She believed she had won the battle of life. What she didn't know was that this would be the first step towards an invisible prison. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Isa Bellini, and here I share with you real-life stories. Stories of strong women who went through emotional scams and extreme situations, but who found within themselves the strength to start over. So, leave your like right now, because that motivates me even more to bring videos like this. After the luxurious honeymoon through the Mediterranean, Ricardo took her to their new home. Villa Harmonia, a secluded mansion on the Amalfi coast. It was simply breathtaking. Tall walls hid a palace of classical lines, adorned with perfectly trimmed gardens, Italian sculptures, and works of art that cost more than Eliza had earned in her entire life. Huge windows, automatic doors, cutting-edge technology, and a winter garden where exotic flowers were carefully maintained in a glass space that seemed perfect. Ricardo opened his arms and said, "Our sanctuary." And Eliza believed him. In the first months, everything was a celebration. Trips, dinners, expensive dresses, rare jewelry. And of course Ricardo's admiring gaze. Or maybe possessive. He constantly praised Eliza. "You are the rarest jewel in my collection." She smiled, still unaware that she was no longer just a wife, but part of a private collection. Eliza, enchanted, didn't realize that this sanctuary would soon become her cage. In the very first week, while exploring the mansion alone, Eliza accidentally saw a message on Ricardo's phone. It was clear, compromising. A woman thanking him for the dinner and the nights they shared. Eliza confronted Ricardo, subtly, full of fear and insecurity. "Who is this?" He laughed coldly. "You're imagining things," and turned his back on her. That was the first seed of gaslighting that would destroy her sanity. Soon after, he confiscated Eliza's phone. "To avoid disturbances," he said. Her access to the internet was cut off. And with that, her last connections to the outside world disappeared. The atelier he had promised, a space where she could create, where she could continue being who she was, remained empty. When Eliza, clinging to a thin thread of hope, mentioned, "I'd like to set up the atelier," he laughed, mocking, "Do you really think you had talent? Be grateful for the luxury I give you. Your place is here, serving me." And with each word, Eliza shrank a little more. But the worst was yet to come. On a silent afternoon, overtaken by longing, Eliza tried, in a rare act of courage, to call her mother. She hid in the bathroom, using a phone she had found, before she could even dial the full number. Ricardo appeared like a predator. He didn't shout. Not that time. He simply looked, took the phone from her hand and, without warning, slammed her violently against the wall. "You don't understand that you can't disobey me." Eliza fell, dazed, her cheek throbbing, a sharp pain slicing through her back. Hours later, he returned with flowers, an expensive jewel, and the phrase, "I'm sorry, my love. I just want to protect you." The cycle had begun, and it never stopped. The physical aggressions became frequent, the slaps, the shoves, and his cold stare, always the same, calculated, distant, immune to the suffering he inflicted. But Ricardo wasn't content with just physical violence. He would wake Eliza in the middle of the night, blasting loud music, under the pretense of wanting company. He moved objects out of place, then accused her of forgetting. "You're losing your mind." He made veiled threats. "What if your mother found out how you behave?" Eliza began doubting herself, her sanity, her memory, even her own identity. For weeks, Eliza sensed that something strange was happening. Ricardo spent hours on the phone, but every time she entered the room, he would abruptly end the call. When she asked, he replied with contempt, "Business matters, my dear. You wouldn't understand." But Eliza couldn't shake the strange feeling, an unease that grew silently inside her. One day, while tidying up the library, his phone pinged on the desk. On instinct, she looked. Eager for another night? "Last night was unforgettable. Kisses, Elle." Eliza's heart stopped. Her hands began to tremble. "Elle?" She recognized that number. It was the same as his secretary's, Lorena, with whom Eliza occasionally spoke to schedule social events. That night, Eliza decided to stay awake. Hidden in the shadows of the upstairs hallway, she heard the front door open and the sound of feminine heels echoing on the cold marble. She hid behind one of the grand columns in the living room. And then she saw her. Lorena. Tight dress, high heels, small purse in hand. Confident, comfortable, as if she had known that path for a long time. Eliza held her breath and silently followed to the staircase, hiding behind the railing. She heard muffled laughter, and then Ricardo's voice, soft and seductive. "Come up. You know the way." Lorena giggled, and the two disappeared, heading to the master bedroom. Her bedroom. Eliza's legs gave out. She sat on the step, hugging her knees, her chest compressed as if it might explode. From upstairs, she heard the sounds, the bed creaking, the laughter, whispered words, words that once belonged to her, now being poured over someone else in that same space. In shock, Eliza ran to his office, knowing that his laptop always remained unlocked. She needed proof, an explanation, or perhaps one last thread of hope that she was mistaken. She quickly opened the screen. The email inbox was there, and among dozens of business messages, there they were. Messages from Lorena. "Can't wait to be alone with you at the mansion." That architect has no idea, right? Poor thing. "Is the upstairs suite just for us tomorrow?" Eliza covered her mouth with her hand, suppressing a scream. And then the audio files. Without hesitation, she put on the headphones. She heard Ricardo's voice, soft, mocking. "She's just a decorative doll, Lorena. You're the one I want." Those words weren't just betrayal. They were the sentence that completely demolished the illusion of love Eliza still tried to sustain. She wasn't a wife. She was a possession, an object on display, while he sought pleasure with whoever he wanted. That night, Eliza didn't cry. She didn't have the strength. She just stayed there, in the cold office, staring at the screen, listening to his heavy breathing in the audios, and finally understanding that this man never loved her, never would. Perhaps he wasn't capable of loving anyone but himself. It was there, at that exact moment, that Eliza knew if she didn't leave that mansion, she would die there. If not physically, she would die as a person, as a woman, as a human being. This was the beginning of the escape she would start planning. Not for freedom, but for survival. Eliza slowly shut down the laptop without making a sound. Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. But she knew she couldn't leave any traces. She deleted the recent history, closed the emails, placed the headphones back on the desk, exactly where he always left them. She looked around the room as if saying goodbye. There, where she had admired him so many times, where she dreamed of a future by his side. Now, only fear remained. Eliza climbed the stairs slowly, her bare feet pressing against the cold marble. In the hallway, she heard Lorena's muffled laughter coming from the bedroom, mixed with Ricardo's authoritarian tone, dictating yet another of his rules. Eliza shivered and quickened her pace. Inside the closet, she grabbed a small bag and carefully placed inside a hidden personal document. An old credit card she had kept without Ricardo knowing, a small amount of cash she had been secretly saving for months, an unconscious premonition. Enough for a ticket, or a cab ride to the bus station. The plan was still unclear, but it needed to begin. That same night, Eliza quietly slipped out onto the balcony of the guest room, which led to the side of the mansion. There, she noticed, one of the security cameras had been deactivated, probably forgotten after a maintenance check. The breach she needed. Over the following days, Eliza acted with the cold precision of someone who knows their life depends on every detail. She studied the guards' routines, noted the schedules of the cleaning staff, observed the movements of the housekeeper, Marta, who, though silent, seemed to sense something, but never asked. Eliza wanted to trust her, but she couldn't. Any mistake would be fatal. On Friday afternoon, Ricardo announced, "I need to travel for business, back on Sunday." And he added, with that poisonous tone, "It'll be good for you to rest. Don't get yourself into trouble, okay?" He kissed her forehead, as one might pet a house-trained animal, and left. As soon as his Mercedes disappeared through the mansion's tall gates, Eliza sprang into action. Eliza dressed in comfortable pants, quiet sneakers, and tied her hair tightly in a bun. In her pocket, the credit card, the cash, the passport, and the prepaid phone she had secretly purchased weeks earlier, during a rare trip to the city under the pretense of buying decoration materials. She descended the stairs, crossed the silent kitchen, and stopped in front of the side service door. Her heart felt like it would explode. She turned the doorknob, locked. But, as she predicted, housekeeper Marta had left the key in the cabinet nearby, as she always did on Friday nights. Eliza grabbed it, took a deep breath, and unlocked the door. The cold night wind hit her face, and, for the first time in months, she felt the scent of freedom. She ran through the side garden, crossed the maintenance gate that led to a secondary road, and didn't look back. She turned on the prepaid phone, called a cab. Eliza rushed into the taxi, her heart pounding, air barely filling her lungs. When the driver asked, "Where to, ma'am?" she could only whisper, "To the bus station." But before the driver could shift gears, a strong arm yanked the door open violently. It was him, Ricardo, the predator's stare, his breathing erratic, that arrogant smile plastered on his face. "Did you really think you could leave me?" His voice was low, but soaked with hatred. Eliza froze, tried to scream, but his hand was already brutally squeezing her arm. He dragged her out of the car as if pulling out a worthless object. She fought, She struggled, but he was stronger. Much stronger. The driver? Frightened. He didn't dare intervene. He sped away, leaving only the smell of exhaust and the echo of Eliza's muffled screams in the silent street. Ricardo dragged her through the mansion gardens. She felt the gravel cutting her feet, the stones digging into her skin. But no physical pain compared to the terror, the absolute despair, the certainty that she was in the hands of a monster, inside the house. He threw her violently onto the cold marble floor. "You embarrass me. You are mine." With every word, his voice grew deeper, more animalistic. Eliza tried to get up, but he grabbed her by the hair and dragged her to the bedroom. And there, with no trace of the elegant man she once knew, Ricardo brutally assaulted her. It wasn't just physical, it was complete destruction of her dignity, of her soul, of her hope. When he finished, he simply stood up, adjusted his shirt, and with that cold, satisfied look said, "Next time you think about running, remember this?" And he left, leaving Eliza lying there, in silence, in tears, in pieces. At that moment, Eliza didn't know whether to cry out of pain, or out of rage, or for realizing that. The prison didn't just have marble walls and electronic locks, but also invisible chains, deeply embedded in her mind and body. But right there, on that cold floor, something else was born. Fragile, but pulsating. The certainty that she had to leave, or she would die.